All right, let's dive into this. You sent me a ton of articles about how universities are using AI.
Oh, yeah.
Everything from like marketing to actually teaching.
hmm
It seems like some people are excited about it, others are kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
Is this like a turning point for higher education? What do you think?
Well, it's definitely interesting to see the contrast.
Yeah.
Universities are going all in on AI for some things. Think of those
Oh,
chatbots.
yeah.
They're popping up everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
But a lot of staff feel completely unprepared
Right.
for this whole new world.
So that's the big question, right? Everyone keeps on saying AI is going to shake things up, but what does that actually mean for, students, for universities, for all of us? So let's dig into these articles and see what's really going on.
Yeah, I think a good place to start might be with the fact that AI is already shaping your experience
Okay.
as a student,
Okay.
even if you don't even realize it.
Interesting.
Have you ever noticed how many college ads you see online?
Oh my gosh, yes. I swear, my Instagram feed is basically just targeted ads for master's programs now.
Right.
Georgetown Business School, they seem to think that I'm about to just quit my job and go get an MBA.
Right, and that's not a coincidence. A study by RNL found that 54% of university marketers
Wow.
think that AI is the key to reaching students.
Oh, okay.
In a personalized way. Think about it. You're bombarded
Oh, yeah.
with so much information online.
Constantly.
A message that feels tailored to you
Mm-hmm.
is going to stand out.
That makes sense. But it kind of makes you wonder, are universities really trying to connect with students on a deeper level?
hmm
Or are they just trying to keep up with the latest trends so they don't seem out of touch?
It's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Those ads are effective because they feel personal,
Right.
even if it's AI, doing the behind-the-scenes work.
Right.
But the potential for personalization goes way beyond just ads.
One of these articles mentioned Element 451, a CRM for universities.
Oh, yeah.
And they're talking about using AI for the entire student journey.
Exactly. Imagine getting emails
Okay.
that know exactly which program you're interested in, maybe even predicting
Wow.
what questions you'll have before you do.
That's wild.
AI could streamline the whole experience,
Mm.
from applying to figuring out financial aid.
Okay, that seems pretty amazing. But are universities actually ready to handle all of this?
Right.
It seems like a lot of change really fast. Is the staff trained to use these tools effectively?
That's the million-dollar question. The same RNL study found that only 25% of university staff
Oh, wow.
feel confident in their AI skills.
That's a pretty big gap.
That's a significant gap, yeah.
Yeah. One blog post I read from Simpson Scarborough talked about how data-driven decision-making
hmm
is the future of higher ed marketing.
And they have a point.
Yeah.
But you need people who can actually use that data
All right.
to make informed decisions.
Yes.
That's the challenge universities are facing right now.
So, okay, it's not all doom and gloom, right? I mean, universities aren't just going to let robots take over while the professors are left in the dust.
No, not necessarily. The good news is people are starting to realize there's a skills gap. That same RNL study found that 81% of university leadership is at least somewhat open to AI training
Oh, okay.
for their staff.
Okay, so that's promising, but who's actually providing this training? Are we talking like tech companies or universities getting involved too?
It's a mix of both.
Okay.
Companies like RNL are already offering AI training programs specifically designed for people working in higher ed. And some universities are partnering with companies like Google
Mm-hmm.
to get early access to the newest AI tools, beta programs, all that.
Speaking of Google, that Carnegie blog post mentioned how their partnership gives them a real leg up
Yeah.
in the digital marketing world. What if universities could be at the forefront of technology instead of always playing catch up?
It's a great example of what can happen when universities embrace these partnerships.
Mm.
But let's not forget that AI isn't just about marketing.
You're right. What about AI in the classroom?
Right.
Does this mean professors are going to be replaced by robots?
Not exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about finding ways to use AI tools to enhance the learning experience
Okay.
for both students and teachers.
Gotcha.
Things like personalized tutoring platforms,
Mm-hmm.
automated grading systems that give professors more time to focus on other things,
Right.
even virtual labs for science courses.
I was reading this blog post about how some professors are using TikTok to connect with Gen Z students.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's cool to see them experimenting with these new platforms.
The Think Orion post is a perfect example
Yeah.
of how AI can bridge the gap between how students learn best and how universities are teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are valid concerns about things like privacy and making sure the content is appropriate, But with the right approach,
Right.
AI could be a really powerful tool for student engagement.
It seems like AI could also help universities address some of the unique challenges that different groups of students might face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
UPCEA talked about how helpful AI could be for military-connected students
Okay.
who often have non-traditional education paths and need support that's flexible
Right.
and adaptable.
So it's not just about making things more efficient.
Right.
It's about making education more equitable
Exactly.
and accessible. That's really encouraging.
It is.
Yeah.
But we also have to remember that implementing AI effectively requires careful planning
Of course.
and thoughtful consideration.
Yeah.
Universities need to be very clear about what they're hoping to achieve with AI and how they're going to measure success.
That makes sense. So if we're talking about using AI for marketing, how do universities know if it's actually working? Is it all about getting more applicants, or are there other things they should be looking at?
It's definitely more complicated
Okay.
than just looking at how many applications they get. UPCEA and Search Influence actually created a benchmark for cost per inquiry in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
On average, it's about $140.
Wait, so there's an actual dollar amount attached to, like, getting someone interested in a university?
There is, but it varies a lot,
Okay.
depending on what kind of program you're talking about.
Mhm.
Non-credit courses are way cheaper to market than something like a graduate degree.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
So if a university knows what their cost per inquiry is,
Mm-hmm.
they can figure out if their marketing is actually cost effective.
Exactly. Tulane University managed to cut their cost per inquiry almost in half
Wow.
just by focusing on this metric. It's not about spending more money.
Right.
It's about spending it smarter.
Okay, so numbers are important, but that Simpson Scarborough blog also said it's not all about the numbers. They talked about measuring things like brand perception and reputation,
Right.
which seems a lot more complicated.
They're right. Those things are harder to quantify, but in the long run, that's how you build trust and loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You're more likely to choose a university with a great reputation, even if their ads aren't as flashy or attention-grabbing.
Absolutely. So we've talked about AI being used in all sorts of ways, from personalized marketing to helping specific groups of students. But one thing that keeps coming up is this idea of a skills gap.
Mm-hmm.
What specific skills do you think will be most important for people working in higher ed as AI becomes more and more common?
That's a fantastic question and something we should definitely explore further.
Yeah.
But before we do that, are there any points from these articles that really jumped out at you or anything you'd like to dive into a little deeper?
You know what? There is something
Okay.
that I found particularly interesting, maybe a little concerning too.
Okay.
It's this whole idea of AI being used for things like making admissions decisions or even grading students' work.
Right.
I get that it could save time and resources, but doesn't that feel a little impersonal?
Yeah.
Like, where's the human element in all of this?
That's a huge question, and honestly, there's no easy answer.
Mhm.
On the one hand, AI has the potential to remove some of the bias
Okay.
that can sneak into human decision-making. Algorithms don't get tired, they don't have bad days, and they're not swayed by personal opinions.
So you're saying AI could actually make things fairer?
Potentially, yes. But on the other hand, algorithms are only as good as the data they're trained on,
Right.
and if that data reflects existing biases, then the AI will simply perpetuate those biases.
That's a really crucial point. We can't just blindly trust AI to make these big decisions without really thinking carefully about all the different factors.
Exactly. And who's ultimately responsible when an algorithm makes a mistake? Is it
Yeah.
the developer, the university, or the person using the tool?
Right.
These are all questions that need to be addressed as AI becomes more integrated into higher education.
It sounds like we're walking a very fine line here.
Yeah.
We want to use the power of AI, but we also need to make sure it's being used responsibly and ethically. This brings me to another question. How do we prepare students for a world where AI is so prevalent?
Yeah.
What skills will they need to thrive?
That's where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
We've talked about the skills gap among university staff, but what about the students themselves? It's not enough to just teach them the technical skills of a particular field anymore.
Right.
They need to be able to think critically, solve complex problems, and adapt to a constantly changing technological landscape.
You know, one of the things that struck me while reading these articles is that AI seems to be really good at tasks that are repetitive or require a lot of data processing.
Yeah.
Things like marketing, scheduling, even grading multiple choice exams.
You're right. AI excels at automating those tasks, which frees up humans to focus on the things that AI can't do well,
Right.
things that require creativity, empathy, and critical thinking.
So maybe the skills that will be most valuable in an AI-driven world are the ones that are uniquely human.
I think you're onto something there.
Like,
In a world where AI handles the routine stuff, the ability to think outside the box, to connect with others on a human level, and to solve problems that haven't been solved before, those skills will be in high demand.
this is making me rethink my whole approach to education. It's
Wow.
not just about learning facts anymore.
Exactly.
It's about developing those adaptable,
Hmm.
uniquely human
And
skills.
that's a really exciting shift.
It is, yeah.
It means that higher education has the potential to play an even more important role
Mm-hmm.
in preparing students for the future. But it's going to require a willingness to embrace new technologies while also staying true to the core values of education:
Mm.
critical thinking, creativity, and commitment to lifelong learning.
I completely agree. This is all a lot to process, but it's incredibly fascinating. I'm curious to know what you think, dear listener. What are your thoughts on the role of AI in higher education?
Do you see it as a threat, an opportunity, or something in between? And what skills do you think will be most important for students to develop as AI becomes more integrated into our lives? We'd love to hear your perspective.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about. But before we wrap up, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. It's kind of a big picture question, but
Oh, I'm all ears. What's on your mind?
it's this idea of AI being used to make like really big decisions. Things like, college admissions or even grading students' work. I get that it could save time and resources,
Yeah,
but it feels a little cold, Like, where's the human touch?
that's a question a lot of people are asking, and honestly, there's no easy answer. There are definitely two sides to this coin. On the one hand, AI could actually help eliminate some of the bias that can creep into human decision-making. Algorithms don't get tired, they don't have bad days, they aren't swayed by personal opinions.
So you're saying that in some cases, AI could actually make things fairer.
Potentially, yeah. But here's the other side of the coin. Algorithms are only as good as the information that they're trained on. And if that information is biased to begin with, the AI is just going to keep repeating those same biases.
That's a really important point. We can't just assume AI is going to make perfect decisions, right?
Right.
We have to think about all the factors involved.
Exactly. And then there's the question of responsibility.
Hmm?
What happens when an algorithm makes a mistake? Who's to blame? The person who created the algorithm, the university, the person who used the tool. These are all things we need to think about as AI becomes a bigger part of higher ed.
So it sounds like we need to be really careful about how we use AI. We want to embrace its potential, but also make sure it's being used responsibly and ethically. This kind of brings me to another question. How do we prepare students for a future where AI is just everywhere? What skills do they need to learn to be successful?
That's a great question, and it brings us to a really interesting point. We've talked about the skills gap among university staff, but what about the students? What do they need to thrive in a world that's driven by AI? It's not enough to just teach them the technical skills of a particular field anymore. They need to be able to think critically, solve complex problems, and adapt to a constantly changing world.
One thing that stood out to me when I was reading all these articles is that AI seems to be really good at tasks that are repetitive or, require a lot of data processing. Things like marketing, scheduling, even grading multiple choice tests.
You're exactly right. That's what AI is good at. Automating those tasks, which means humans are freed up to focus on the things AI can't do well, things that require creativity, empathy, and critical thinking.
So maybe the most valuable skills in a world that's, run by AI are the skills that are uniquely human.
I think you're hitting on something really important here. In a world where AI is handling the routine stuff, the ability to think outside the box, to connect with people on a human level, and to solve problems in new and creative ways, those are the skills that are going to be in high demand.
This is making me completely rethink what education should look like. It's not just about memorizing facts anymore. It's about developing those, flexible, adaptable human skills that make us different.
And that's such an exciting shift. It means higher education has a chance to play an even bigger role in getting students ready for the future. But it means universities need to be willing to embrace new technologies and stay true to the things that make education so valuable. Things like critical thinking, creativity, and lifelong learning.
I couldn't agree more. This has been a lot to take in, but it's fascinating. I'd love to know what you think about all this, dear listener. What are your thoughts on AI in higher education?
Yeah, do you see it as a threat, an opportunity, something in between? And what skills do you think are going to be most important for students? As AI becomes more and more part of our lives, we want to hear what you think.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about. But before we wrap up, there's one more thing I wanted to bring up. It's a pretty big question. What happens to the value of a college degree in a world where AI can seemingly do so much?
That's a question a lot of people are wrestling with. And it's totally understandable to feel uncertain about what the future holds. But I think it's important to remember that a college degree is much more than just a list of skills or a piece of paper.
It's about the whole experience, right? The personal growth, the critical thinking skills, the connections you make with other people. Yeah, it's about like becoming a well-rounded person.
Exactly. A college education, at its best, it's about so much more than just learning a specific job skill. It's about learning how to think for yourself, communicate well, work with other people, and be a part of your community. Those are things that AI can't do.
So maybe the value of a degree kind of shifts, right? It becomes less about proving you have certain skills and more about showing that you can like learn, adapt, and succeed in a world that's super complex.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. In a world that's changing so fast, being able to learn and adapt is way more valuable than knowing any specific skill set. And earning a college degree, putting in the work, thinking critically, all of that, it shows that you have those qualities.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. We've talked about how AI is already changing higher education, from how universities market themselves to how it might actually be used in the classroom. We even talked about that skills gap and how important it is to use AI ethically, especially when making big decisions.
Right. And we've seen how AI could help make education more accessible, more efficient. It could give educators more time to focus on those things that make us human. Creativity, critical thinking, building those relationships.
And at the end of the day, we've been thinking about what actually matters in education. It's not just about learning facts anymore. It's about developing those skills, those qualities that'll help us thrive in this world where, let's face it, AI is everywhere.
It is. It's a new frontier.
Hmm.
And it's so important to approach AI with both caution and curiosity. We need to be aware of the risks, but also open to the amazing things that are possible.
Yeah, and maybe the most important thing is to keep having honest conversations about how to make sure AI helps everyone.
As you continue on your own journey, whether you're in higher education now or you're looking back on your experiences, think about how AI is shaping the future of learning. What excites you? What worries you? What can we do together to make sure AI in education is a force for good?
Those are some great questions. We'll leave you with that for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.